Welcome to The Loop. I am Louis Robinson, your host, and I am joined by Joe Dunbar over in the States. How are we doing, Joe?
Doing good today, Louis. As always, thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us, mate. Thanks for joining us. It's always a pleasure when we get to catch up. But second episode of The Loop, mate, kicking things off here properly. We've done the intros, and now we want to give people what we're going to do with The Loop and why we've put it together. So we've got two main topics that we're going to talk about. It might sound simple, but number one, the first one we want to talk about are almost pre-staging to go in and looking at Microsoft Teams rooms, because I get phone calls all the time asking me the same question about why something isn't working on that first install. And usually the answer is the same that I start to uncover. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. And number two, what's your main point of discussion here, Joe?
I want to talk a little bit about support process. And I think these two things, Louis, tie together pretty good because a lot of it is A, about preparation, and B, knowing, what resources are available to you, where to find them, how to find them, who to contact, and those types of things. So they kind of go hand in hand. You're talking about pre-sale. I'm talking about post-sale. But that's how you get through the whole show right there.
100% right. Is how everything starts for us, right? We're there at the start, we're there at the middle, and we're there at the end. So let's dial back then. Point number one we want to talk about. Time and time again, the question I'm asked is, why is the kit not working? It's very vague, but that is the question. And a lot of the time, yeah, it's like, whoa, hold on. Should we load it back? Let's go. Let's find out what's going on here. It's like, but let's take you to a scenario where everything's been installed correctly from a hardware perspective, right? And you've logged in using some credentials and the kit still isn't working. Usually the issue I find there is a very important conversation with an end user's IT team hasn't happened, because IT world, AV world, UC world, we're all still kind of finding our feet on how we work together, right? And it's not uncommon to hear that a project's gone ahead without an element being involved somewhere. And a lot of the time I find when people ring me and they said everything's been installed properly, but it's not working, it's because they're not using the right license, because they've not spoken to the right person. And a lot of the time, being honest, people are using their own personal licenses, which we know doesn't work, right? You cannot be using your personal licenses to be testing out end users' Windows MTRs, for instance.
I've seen it time and time again, and I know this is a really simple thing, but this is basic preparation that can save not only potentially some hours of troubleshooting or, whatever on the job site, but more likely a return visit, because now you got to talk to somebody about, we don't have the right license to put to this room. And so now we got to deal with the IT team. We'll come back. We'll get with you. And now you're talking about another truck roll, which everyone knows is money out of your pocket right out of the gates. We're trying to help you guys avoid that and keep your profits to a maximum.
Exactly that, right? And I see it time and time again. People ring me up and they try and go to the IT individual at site that they need to talk to, and they're not there for a week. And then that room's out of action for a week until they can go back and find the right person who's looking after that kit. Now, massive, larger organizations, right, they have multiple people in the team. But if you're looking at that smaller market where those businesses do only have one IT resource, or they're a third-party resource, having a conversation a week later that you could have had a week before can cost a lot of money when it comes to projects. And it might sound simple to you and me because we're doing it every day. But again, if this isn't something that you do every day, if you're an integrator who puts the hardware in, but doesn't usually get involved with the conversations behind the scenes, you might be in those scenarios. So number one point, like I said, we're going to talk about licensing structures and just conversations where you can get the ball rolling. Now, I'm not saying by this point that as an integrator, you need to know 365 inside out and you need to know licensing structures. You don't really need to know how to commission those licenses. You just need to make sure before you get to site, the team who look after their Teams tenancy or their 365 tenancy, they're aware of what you're going to be installing, and they're aware that you're installing a room resource. So you want a Teams rooms license, not a user license, a Teams rooms license. And if you're doing an install that's using dual screens, for instance, you need to be having a pro license conversation here so that when you get to site, you don't turn up with one blank screen and one screen working, wondering why has everything gone wrong? Because that little conversation that could have been had before with the tenancy owner to say, look, we're going to be deploying a Teams room here. We're going to be doing dual screen. So as an end user, can you investigate what licenses you have available? If you don't have them available, can we work together? Maybe we need to pull in our distributor to talk to Microsoft to educate us on that licensing structure. But let's make sure we're having the chat. so that before site we know exactly what kind of ball game we're playing.
Yeah, one of the things I see a lot of the times is that the hardware gets in and maybe a license can get into the system and purchased, but they're not all set up and assigned to a specific room and resources bundled together. So maybe even you get your team's room up and going and everything is working great, but it's not scheduling correctly, right? And it's not hitting the calendar correctly because the resources aren't assigned and aligned correctly inside of the admin center. So that's another really critical piece when you're talking to your team's admin, and to make sure that not just that those licenses are there and that they're correct licenses, but are you going to be able to get them aligned with the hardware correctly so that they can all go together? So when you book a room, maybe with a scheduling panel out front, or maybe from your Outlook on your laptop or wherever it is, you can book the room and all the resources are allocated appropriately. I run into that one quite a bit. I don't know how often you guys see that as well, but usually we're like a piece of the hardware isn't assigned to the room correctly, and so it's not functioning in the room when it's scheduled and blocked off.
Oh yeah, we see it a lot. All things like that. When it comes to licensing and, like you said, grouping together the resources and making sure it's working together, I tend to find, again, I'm going to go back here a little bit, it's that UC, AV, IT kind of working like this and joining those dots up and making sure everyone is in tandem and learning together a lot of the time as well. So even here at Midwich, I've spent a lot of time with our in-house IT team, and they've educated me on how we have to go about integrating kit into our ecosystems. And I've educated them on how team systems rely on certain elements working within that ecosystem to actually function correctly. Right. Now, like I said at the start, I'm not saying that as an integrator, you need to go out and learn 365 and be a guru on how to set up a 365 tenancy for someone or manage how they're going about doing that. But having that conversation and just getting those cogs turning straight away. If you're going to be doing these types of rooms, get IT involved. You're the AV, have the chats together, make sure we're talking licensing, make sure we've looked at it. And if anybody is a little bit unsure, grab us. We can get the right person in. Someone can walk you through and make sure that you are getting what you need from your tenancy, from your hardware to bring everything together.
Basic stuff, but that's it. And that can be the difference between a successful deployment where you walk out and everything's grand, or sorry, we're going to have to come back next week when these other people are available. And we all know that can make a huge difference, not only in the bottom line, but even more importantly, in your customer satisfaction, which ultimately is your bottom line. So a couple of simple steps that hopefully help you guys out.
Yeah. And from an end user perspective too, if you roll a room out, we had a project recently where we were supposed to be running out Android devices across an estate, and we ran into this situation where the licensing wasn't talked about first, and the IT team aren't going to be there for a few days. So we've got loads of rooms using a bar in BYOD mode. So the end user, the day-to-day end user, is going into that room and learning how that room is supposed to be used now. That's going to change for them in a week or so's time. Right. And they've got to relearn. So if that conversation happened before, that whole thing would have been a bit smoother, and the day-to-day end user would have found their learning experience a lot easier than what they will now. So
I love it, man. That really all comes down to like a successful deployment. And again, being able to just shake hands, walk out and say, thanks so much for your business, or sorry, we got to come back and change things in a little bit. So a couple of really basic things that are easy tips. Get in touch ahead of time. Make sure you got the right people in the conversation. And if you don't know, ask.
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah, ask. And that's what we're here for, right? So right. On our day to day, if you're going into a project, be completely open. If you're the AV individual and you've never spoke to IT before, sometimes we'll make the assumption that you know that you're having that conversation, and we don't need to be involved with that conversation because we think you're having it. And time again, that's not the case, right? So we just want a simple point, easy point, but it's something that's easily missed too, because there are, like I said, there's multiple teams here, and bringing them together to make sure we're all on the same page is somewhat of a difficult task sometimes.
It can be. And honestly, so this ties really into kind of what I want to talk about, Lee, which is like the support process. And honestly, I'm sure we will talk about this more on the show as we kind of continue. People hear me talk about it all the time because you really want to know, at least just have an idea, right? Support process. And I'm talking post-sale now. So this was all pre-sale. What can we do to make our Microsoft Teams rooms more successful? Now talking post-sale a little bit, not even specifically applicable to Microsoft Teams rooms, but any of the other platforms or hardware providers. A lot of the questions I get really come into play when somebody's on site, standing there right now. They need some help immediately, which, we're usually able to kind of provide them help while they're still on site. But if there's a problem with the Teams room, to the point we're making earlier, they're still going to have to come back. A lot of hardware, now talking specifically about the hardware manufacturers, each of them has their own process for not just warranty, but also like post-sale support from the manufacturer and things like that. And so if our systems integrator partners, usually they're going to make us the first phone call. If we can't help them out, we'll walk through some troubleshooting to make sure that we're getting the basics out of the way. And if we can't help them out, we have to get the manufacturer involved. A lot of the manufacturers have their own process. Generally, it's going to start with submitting a ticket of some kind to their system. And I know, having had this personal
dreaded ticket.
Oh my gosh. You're in the field, you're sweating because your head's in the back of a rack all morning or whatever. You got to come out, you're calling an 800 number to get a computer. Like, this is a nightmare. So what is my advice, right? Like, how can we avoid this? Well, I'm not even necessarily saying you can avoid this. My advice to you to make this easier, right? The ticket process is almost always supported online, which I know you want to talk to a person, which is why you call us. We are the person you can talk to. If we're to the point where we need to submit a ticket with the manufacturer, Louis, I know you do because I do too. We have contacts with the manufacturer and people assigned to help us with our partners, and we can access and utilize those people, but they also need a ticket submitted first. We need somewhere to allocate all this time and resources to so that we can keep track of what's going on and make sure that we're not, nothing more frustrating as an integrator than having to call someone, explain your problem when you finally do get a hold of somebody, then get punted down the line to have to explain it again to somebody else, right? I cannot stand that. So I really, in the past, in my own experience, have fought the ticket process a little bit and now have learned that it's like, man, that's almost where I start. When I'm making the phone call to my distribution partner, I'm usually also digging up the website on my laptop to find the support site so I can go ahead and submit a ticket. If I haven't found it by the time that my disty partner or the person I purchased my hardware from has picked up the phone, then I say, hey, do you know where I can find this? Guess what? I have the link saved in bookmark. I can send it right to you. If you want to sit on the phone and give me the information, I'll submit the ticket on your behalf if I can, because in some cases that's something we can do. But that ticket is such an extremely important thing for the manufacturer to then be able to say, oh yeah, we do have the problem. It's assigned, it's logged. We're keeping track of it. Here it is. Oh, you need a resource. You need an engineer, somebody like that's dedicated to you guys. Cool. We can assign them to this. And now it's, something that we can track and use and get you help on. It also saves you from having to reiterate the story over and over and over and over. So usually starting a support ticket, Louis, and I don't know if you guys do it any differently, you'll have to tell me, but it's something I recommend that I kind of do at the same time is reaching out to somebody. If you're going to pick up the phone and make a phone call to your partners, if you're going to send an email and say, hey, I need some help, I also usually go submit a ticket on the website. If they discover that there's nothing we can do for that ticket, or you figure out that problem or whatever the case is, and all of a sudden that ticket is a moot point, easy. Then we can close the ticket and move on. But it is such a thing that I think by the time a lot of integration partners get to the point where we're saying, hey, please go submit a ticket, their brain is already so far down where it's like, I just want the answer. And it's like, yep, I understand that. But if we don't have it and we have to get another resource, this is the fastest way to do it. Me calling somebody to then call somebody and say, hey, can you help us out? We need somewhere to allocate that time. So it's just a really important piece of the process that if you get in ahead of time, will make the post-sale support much easier. And if you call me and say, hey, yeah, I already have a ticket, great. Let's look it up. Let's get the information. Oh, we need more help. Now I can get right to that person because there's a ticket we can assign them to. So I hate to beat it to death, man. I don't know what the post-sale support process is like for you guys, but for us, very often, Louis, it involves, great, we talked about it for a couple minutes. We need to get a ticket in the queue. And instead of fighting that, I've just learned to say, okay, cool. Let's get that ticket going, because that kickstarts the rest of the process for post-sale support. So critical.
Yeah, I tend to find too as well, right? So there's a couple of points that I want to bring up there and hone in on. So you mentioned as well, being on site, integrating kit, sweaty in a rack, it's all getting a bit stressful. Something goes wrong. The likelihood is that's not the only thing you're doing at site, right? There's going to be other things. Now, I'm not going to toot the horn too much, but that's kind of why we're here, right? So whenever you run into a brick wall, park it for a minute. Ring us, put the ticket on us. we can track that ticket, we can log it with the vendors, we can call the vendors, we can do that while you're focusing on something else. And hopefully in that time, if you're going away and doing something else, we can do that laborious ticket task that people don't want to do. The other thing is that, and I even do this now, right? If I'm on the phone to someone and I fix a problem for them, even if I knew how to fix that problem without having to research it and look at something, I'll likely raise a ticket anyway with our support system, purely down to the fact of I can then go back and I can look through tickets and go, right, so this is a reoccurring issue here. So these are conversations that I can then start on. Again, going back to that pre-sales bit, because I can see then these are genuine issues that keep popping up. Also, nobody's going to remember everything, right? And if we're logging tickets for things that we know how to solve, and then we're logging tickets for things that we didn't know how to solve, but we had to do a bit of process, we're effectively making a big FAQ section of, cool, don't worry, I had this call yesterday. So either you go away and you go do something else to cool off for a minute because I can hear you're stressed and you've got some stuff to do on site, and we'll revisit this in an hour whenever you've had time to cool off, maybe go get some lunch. We'll sort it. It's fine. I've got the answer here. Or I just need to reach out to someone. But if I need to reach out to someone, that's the last time I need to reach out to someone for that question because I've got it in a ticket ready to go for the next time it comes up.
Absolutely. That's a great point. That's a great point, man. It's a super simple thing, but it's just a critical part of the process that I think gets fought a little bit. And we learn to embrace it and say, this is the way it is, and I'm going to get into it. That accelerates things a lot. So I think that you make a great point too. There's usually other stuff that can be done on the job site. Or in my case, I've certainly, we got another job nearby. Let me go hit that and I'll come back to this is always an option for us too. Or wasn't, when I was in the field anyway. Louis, I got a couple update things we can hit before we get out of here, if you're all right with that.
Cool. Yeah, definitely.
We were talking about Microsoft Teams earlier, man, and there's a couple of Teams updates, two kind of big ones that I guess are worth noting. So Copilot and all the intelligent microphone speaker things that have come out in the last couple of years in solutions. For the longest, or I shouldn't say for the longest time, since its inception, for Copilot to be able to work and do its AI transcription and things like that, you have had to use a specific type of intelligent microphone, that's been certified by Microsoft and works with their platform and everything. And now that is no longer the case. So you still need to use a microphone that is certified for the Teams platform, but it doesn't need to be a specific intelligent microphone or anything like that. So now if you want to use Copilot and the transcription features and all that sort of stuff, you can, whatever Teams certified microphone you want to use, you can use. So that's a big update for the folks who are getting into transcription, which seems to be, I'm seeing pretty high adoption rates. What about you?
Yeah, 100%. So I was just about to say, I'm not going to say recently because it wasn't recent. It was a good while ago now, but I had a project come up where we installed loads of pro audio into meeting rooms, and that end user has decided they want to adopt Copilot more and use more transcription to help present meetings back and help with people that have missed meetings, which is a great use of Copilot. And their problem was the certified models at the time were tiny little table speakerphones, effectively, that just couldn't facilitate the 30-person rooms that we'd kitted out, which are where what they would say their most important updatable type meetings were being held. Because with a room of 30 people in a room where you were dialing in another 10, 20 other people, someone's ill, someone can't attend. So now to be able to use other audio devices that are certified to work in Teams to capture that transcription and be able to work with those AI features, I think it's going to be massive. And the end user adoption on this is looking really good. I was a little bit ropey at the start, talking about voice profiles and picture profiles and how's it stored and what's the security behind this, and is that going to be like we saw with video, right? When we first came back after COVID, people didn't want to turn on the camera. They were a bit like, this is invasive. We don't work like this. But no, I'm now seeing the turn, the trajectory on this, and the end users that are talking to me about it, and the amount of conversations now that end users are starting for me. I'm not the one mentioning it. They're the ones saying, how do we use Copilot? How do we transcribe? How do we make sure that we're using AI to make us more productive? What do we do here? Is really refreshing to see.
I love it, man. It's a seemingly small update that can have huge impacts down the line. To your point, especially with hardware that's already installed, and folks who are looking to make tick up their adoption and utilize those tools more. The other update I had for Microsoft Teams, and I don't want to I don't want to speak too much to this because honestly, I was just reading about this. I don't know everything about it, but Microsoft Teams is working with Pexip, and they're introducing something called Pexip Connect, which I don't want to say that it's replacing Direct Cast Join. I can't quite tell from the literature if that's going to be the case or if this is something that runs alongside it, is a parallel feature. But they introduced Pexip Connect, which basically is like Direct Cast Join, but with more features, right? The limitations of Direct Cast Join at this point have been, lack of screen sharing or lack of camera controls or all sorts of things. There's not really any features from any of the platforms that you're used to having. It's just that one platform can talk to another, and that's it. You're in, there's video, there's sound, that's it. Now with Pexip Connect, they're trying to introduce some of those, more interoperability. I got that. I'm so proud of myself.
It's such a hard word. It doesn't roll off the tongue, no.
It does not. But that's what everybody's been asking for, and we continue to see, solutions come in this realm. So the reason I'm excited, Louis, is just because I really thought this was going to be a thing where everybody was going to say, no, interoperability is not something we're interested in. We want to keep people on our platform. But really the manufacturers and the UC providers, right? You're talking about Microsoft Teams and Zoom and Google and all these folks, Ring. They're coming together and at least saying, look, we understand there are always going to be folks who are using a different solution for a different reason, but we still want to allow them to work with our customers and our partners who are using our solution. So this is something that's just, I'm really excited about. Interoperability is a huge thing that has been talked about for years and years. And I thought it was going to kind of die on the vine, but it continues to get quietly a little bit of attention. So we'll keep an eye out. Pexip Connect. I don't know. I'm excited about it.
I was going to say that's going to be our segue, right? Because we got some homework to do on that one, right? And I think this is a good place that we're going to sound like a shameless plug here, but let us know, leave a comment. If this is something you're looking at, we're going to go away and do our homework anyway, and we're going to find out more about this and how it works and how you integrate with it and what questions you need to be asking to get people up and running with this. But let us know your questions about this too. If you've come across it, if this is something that you want to learn about, but you don't have the time to, let me and Joe go do the homework. Let us put together a bite-sized session on different parts of how this is going to work for people, where people can use it. I think it's going to be a great topic. And interoperability, I think going forward is, again, it's a question I get every day. I use Zoom, I use WebEx, I use Teams. How do I make this work everywhere I go? But in a way that I don't have to be a genius on how this all works, right?
Right.
So yeah, let's do our homework. Let's make that an episode. We'll talk about that, but make sure you leave a comment and let us know what you've seen in this round, where you've picked it up, if there's anything particular you want us to hone in on.
Yeah, I love it, Louis. I'm going to take this one a step further, and in 2 weeks when we drop another episode, I'm going to tag on to this interoperability conversation because it's one that goes on and on about hosted devices and BYOD situations. So please let us know what you're interested in, folks, and we'll be sure to kind of stay on those topics and get you more information that makes sense for your day to day.
Cool. Well, I think this is a good time as well to snap this one. We don't want to. We could talk all day, couldn't we? Let's be honest. We were doing it while we was in Vegas together. We kept saying to each other, "Right, we're getting really boring. Everyone else has left, and we're still here." So it's probably a good idea. We call this for episode 2.
Yeah, that's we started getting into this, man, and then we started talking about it so much at the beginning. It was like, well, let's save this for the podcast itself. So that's a good spot for me, man. I think it's a good topic. We got the folks a couple of bite-sized pieces, and we'll keep doing that.
Yeah, 100%. So don't forget, we have to say it, don't we? Like, comment, subscribe. Let us know your thoughts. Let us know what you're looking at. Let us know any questions you've got. Let us know what you want us to cover. Anything. Me and Joe are here for you. Joe's stateside. I'm in the UK. So we're going to see it from 2 sides of the pond. There's going to be loads of ways we link up. There's going to be loads of things that I'm personally going to learn from Joe as well, which is great. So hopefully we can share that with you and you join us on the journey.
I appreciate it, buddy. Thank you.
Cheers for joining us, Joe.